Hi everybody, I'd like to welcome you to this channel, the Armchair Sceptic. I'm Rod and I am the Armchair Sceptic. This is just a short video about the American presidential debate, which I've just finished listening to here in Australia. And I thought I just might make some comments on the debate as an Australian who listened to it. And I also listened to some of the commentary about it after the debate was complete. Okay, let's just start, because I'm not going to say too much, just to pick out a few points that I think are important to make. The first thing, when they came on stage, Harris was quite polite. She went to shake his hand. It looked like he didn't want to, but he did in the end, seemingly reluctantly, I don't know. Anyway, as it got started, I want to just say right at the beginning, I think Harris won by a mile. I think, as we Australians say, she wiped the floor with him in many respects. She was right on cue all the time. She never hesitated. She answered every single question, as opposed to Trump, who didn't. Now, one of the things I had irritated me about Trump is he kept harking on the old messages that we all know about and coming back to it almost irrelevantly. And that's on immigration, that's the first thing. And there are, which he kept mentioning all the time. It was quite irritating. Now, I just want to make a few points about that immigration debate. He said, I think he said 21 million illegal immigrants in the US, for which I understand, and from what I've read, there's no evidence for that whatsoever. I don't think it's 21 million at all. That's a ridiculous number. And he blames, of course, the Biden-Harris administration for that. But he didn't say much when he was told by Harris and the commentators that, in fact, the legislation to get new staff on the immigration down south was, rejected by Trump. He told the Republicans to reject it. And he didn't answer that very well at all, actually. And a few other things he said about immigrants that I found quite weird and strange. He argued, for example, that all the crime virtually in America was due to illegal immigrants, which is not. The evidence is there's not. And he argued this strange argument that there's no crime in other countries where the immigrants came from, like I think he mentioned Venezuela and South America and other places like that, claiming that they had deliberately encouraged the bad people to migrate to the US. So in Trump's view, all the bad people are in the US and they've left their countries, leaving them crime-free. That is ridiculous. And I can't understand how he would think that people would believe such a stupid argument. And he claimed also the usual, that they're taking the work from, he didn't use the word black jobs, which I think he's been told not to do, but he claimed that taking jobs that African Americans and Latinos usually have. Now, I've just read a bit of evidence, and I don't think that's true. The immigrants, first of all, a lot of immigrants, and I don't know whether they're the illegal ones or not, are not more likely to commit crimes than other Americans, in fact normal Americans, in fact less so. And the other thing is that they are they are not from the places he's asking for. I mean, he uses the terms like, criminals and drug addicts, and he says mental institutions, which I find quite insulting actually. These are people with mental illness and they're demonising them. He ought to know that, and he ought to have been advised against that. The other thing he said was really weird, that in place, I think he mentioned Springfield, in Illinois, that the immigrants there are eating dogs. I don't know whether he said dog and cat, I think he said dogs. And the commentator was sensible enough to say he'd been talking, I think, to the mayor of Springfield. He said, no, we've got no evidence of that at all. Now that's weird. That is a weird thing to say. So this immigration thing is ridiculous. And Kamala Harris did put the point to him once. How are you going to deal with that? I mean, how are you going to get 10 million people or 20 million people out of the country? I mean, it would be the biggest human movement in history. It's like taking the population of Greece out of Greece, or Portugal out of Portugal, the whole population. How is he going to do it? Where's he going to put them? Where are they going to be bused to, or shipped to, or flown to? Who knows? He hasn't thought that through. So that's a bit of a weird statement. Now, I just want to move quickly to some of the foreign affairs things. He claims he could have stopped the Ukraine-Russia war in a couple of days. And Kamala Harris, of course, asked him how he was going to do that. And she suggested he would just give it away to Putin, absolutely. She made the point that Putin is a known criminal, and she should have said he's been charged with war crimes. And he really, she said he'd be sitting, if he got your way, Putin would be sitting in Kiev, saying, now what am I going to do? What country am I going to conquer next? And you would let him. He tried to get out that by saying that Putin would be in Moscow, etc. Trying to justify Putin's actions in this war is really weird. And in any case, he didn't say anything about how he would stop the arrangement. All he said was, if I was when I was president-elect, I would talk to Zelensky and Putin. But he didn't say what he was going to say to them. He probably would say to Zelensky, you'll have to give in what he's already taken. That's what he'd do. Putin can't afford to let go of the territories that he has taken from Ukraine. I don't know how he would be able to solve the problem at all, actually. He hasn't obviously thought about it. The second thing is he depreciates NATO, which Kamala Harris actually corrected him, say it's the greatest, the greatest organisation, the greatest defence organisation of all time. It's powerful. And Joe Biden actually built it up. He was the one that built it up. And all Trump is doing is screaming about NATO countries not paying their due fares and things like that. It's quite clear that if he became the president, he wouldn't support NATO at all, and he probably wouldn't support Ukraine at all. He'd let it go. He was a little bit strange also on the Gaza-Israel war, a little bit weird. I think Kamala Harris answered that question very well. She supports Israel's right to protect itself, and she argued for, which I agree with, a two-state solution, which I don't think he wanted to have anything to do with. The third point I just wanted to make is that on abortion, he was very unclear. He was wanting to say two things opposite each other at once, and the debate was really almost difficult to understand from Trump's point of view. It was a very, for me anyway, who's an Australian and doesn't understand what's going on, I know that there is a law which allows, they've overturned a federal law which which allowed abortion in every state, and changed it somehow so that some states can have it and some not. And of course, Kamala Harris pointed out that it created the problem of women, who'd been raped or who were too young, having to go to another state to have an abortion. I mean, it's very cruel. He hasn't thought out the consequences of what he's saying. The last point I wanted to make is that he actually told a whole lot of lies, and I think if they're fact-checked, that they'll be shown to be lies, but they don't seem to make any difference to him, nor do they make any difference to his firmly, closely followed, people wherever they are, the South, the religious people that he likes to support. So I think that, and the last point I wanted to make is that Kamala Harris was asked for a policy about what she would do when she became president, or if she became president. And she answered the question really quite well, pointing out what she was going to do. I won't go through the details because they involve gifts, not gifts, $6,000 assistance to some families, and a whole range of very good things that, by the way, we have here in Australia. But I don't think he ever produced a policy statement of what he was going to do if he became the president. He keeps, ranting on about making America great again, and saying that Biden has reduced America to a laughing stock, which it hasn't. It's improved it since Trump left office. Trump left unemployment, he left the economy in a mess, and Biden has more or less sorted that out. But anyway, he had no statement of policy in any detail whatsoever except make America great again and chase all the illegal immigrants out of America or ship them out. And he kept coming back to that. And in fact, once when he was asked, I think he was asked about the January 6th, and he tried to support it, and he couldn't. And what he did was change the subject, saying, okay, you letting so many immigrants in down south who are murdered, there's more people killed by that than by this. So I guess he was saying, that justifies what happens there. And even then he was lying about what happened on the 6th of January, as was pointed out to him. He was saying he had no involvement in the sense of encouraging it, which he did. And so he tried to shift blame all the time back away from himself. And we got nothing about policy from him whatsoever. We got no idea what he's going to do except some of the bad things with the Justice Department and a few other things. But he said really nothing. He just answered with lies and exaggerations with immigrants. That was the thing that he kept coming back to, which is boring because he says it all the time. He thinks he's on a winner, I think. I'm not sure he is. Anyway, thank you. That's just my reaction. It's a really quick reaction because I got straight on to the camera and recorded this without too much planning. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this channel. I hope you listen to my other vlogs on the channel and that you subscribe, which will help me a lot because, as you know, I'm trying to get some technology together to make these videos a little bit better, more professional. I'm not a technological expert at all, and so I need to spend some money to improve the equipment and stuff like that. So thank you very much, and good wishes to all of you, especially those in the United States. I wish you well. Thank you very much.